Yeah. And then I don't know about you, but it's like in the middle of the night, I'll wake up and I go, oh my God, I forgot this. Or you remember something, you go, yeah, got to remember that in the morning.
I did it for the first 2 months. And I think the month of March, I've been so exhausted. I don't wake up. Like I think maybe I logged an average of 4 hours the whole month of January nightly.
So,
it was just it's
it'll be good to share some of this with the crowd who I'm about to let in.
Okay.
So y'all ready?
Ready.
Okay, we have started recording and I'm about to open the doors. So here we go. We are now live. And welcome to all as you're joining. I'm going to wait just a few seconds to let people filter in. But we are excited to have you all with us. And I think we now have a critical mass. So Edie, Marta, let's get going and welcome to all. This is the third legislative forum co-hosted by the Boulder Monitor and by the Boulder Transition Advisory Committee. And excited to have you all here as the legislature, Montana legislature enters the home stretch. So if you've been with us before and on our first two forums, you know what this is about. This is a chance to kind of get an insider view into the workings of the state legislature, to understand what is happening and how it happens. It's also a chance for you to get to know your legislators, sorry, Marta and Edie, to understand what they're working on, how they're thinking about this work, what's important to them and how they are working through the process of bills coming up and passing and all of that. It's also a chance for them to hear from you, for you to ask questions, to voice concerns. Some of you have already done so in advance. Thank you for that. If you have questions that emerge in the course of this conversation, please hit the Q&A button and type in your questions. I will see them and I'll be able to filter and work them into the conversation. We can't accommodate every question, but I'm going to do my best to get to most of them. So good. Marta, Edie, as I said, we are in the home stretch, 3 months down, one-ish to go. The budget is now in the room. It has had the first vote by the House. Most other bills are kind of in the last stages. We have a pretty good idea now, probably what's going to pass, what is not, and sort of what the shape of this legislature is taking. So tell us, please, what the last month has been like for you and what you're working on. And Marta, I believe it's your turn to start us, and just to remind us all, Marta and Edie each will have 10 minutes, give or take, to talk about what is going on and what they're working on. And we'll then proceed into questions from all of you. So, Marta, the mic is yours.
Well, good evening and amen that we are in the home stretch. It has been quite a learning curve for me, as I've said, 60 days-ish into this. It seems like we met not too long ago. And when we met, it was right before Transmittal Week, which was quite an interesting process. A lot of bills were pushed through that week. And one particular evening, I will say, if just to shed light on the process, one particular evening, stands out in my mind, and there's a representative, and she brought forth 3 or 4 bills that had to do with zoning, and I could tell she put her heart and soul into each and every one of those bills. She had constituents and others as proponents. There was only a little bit of time, though, for each person to get to speak on those particular bills. And I left that evening a little discouraged because I wish people got to speak more, and that I got to learn more thoroughly each and every bill, which I really only get to dive into the ones I'm in committee. And then I am somewhat relying on the vote count when I get to the House floor. And then when people stand up and talk on each issue on the House floor, I usually pull up the vote count, see who's voted, see who I really respect and has the same sort of principles as I have, and see where maybe that person voted on a particular bill. That's one strategy I've followed on some of my floor votes. Looking back at that one particular evening, that I know that legislator stayed up all night. So there are some really dedicated people. She stayed up all night getting ready for that evening. And then all of those bills were tabled because it wouldn't have been good for the state. It wouldn't have affected one area. And I think that's one thing, you know, there are bills brought forward. And if it's negative for the entire state in that particular instance, it would have affected negatively the whole state. So they were all tabled. But so that's just my memory of transmittal and all the bills that came through. So as far as bills that I think that would interest everyone, especially those in Boulder and the district, Whitehall and around, I just in this last week, there was a House Bill 421, which was tabled in our state administration. And it was basically an incentive to get emergency care providers, because I know we talked about that in one of our meetings over the last 6 months, that, you know, we're having a hard time finding emergency care providers that are volunteers. So this bill is basically an incentive to try to figure out a pension maybe for the volunteers if they decide to go forward and be a volunteer, since we're having such a hard time with that. So we got that to the floor. We got that passed after much discussion. House Bill 369 is a bill brought forward by Representative Cafaro, and the good senator was a co-sponsor on that. And I voted for that one, and it failed. And it basically brought mental health education to kids. And I thought that was a really important bill. And I believe it either failed 50-50 or 51-49, which was, or 49-51. And I was disappointed with that. And I told Representative Cafaro that I really appreciated her work on that. House Bill 170 is the green hydrogen bill, which is a great investment for Montana and will bring 800 to 1,000 jobs, maybe to the Butte area. And I think that's a great investment for Montana. Of course, everyone knows, hopefully, that House Bill 2, we spent all day on that last Monday. We got that across the House floor, and I'm sure there will be some changes to that. But I think overall, as far as a party goes, we worked really hard on that. I'm sure there will be changes in the Senate, and then of course it'll get to the governor. So along the lines of House Bill 2, we've got the beast, House Bill 632, which appropriates at least $400 million to K-12 schools impacted by COVID, and $450 million in renter and homeowners assistance, COVID testing, contact tracing, vaccines, and to assist businesses, which I think is wonderful. I carried House Bill 161, actually Senate Bill 161, which is an expedited subdivision review. And it basically looks at a growth. It's for municipalities, but if county commissioners decided to use it, it could also be used. It's an expedited subdivision review. If you've already got if municipalities already have a growth plan and already have zoning in place and the infrastructure, water, sewer, then this is a expedited review process. It doesn't exempt anything. DEQ is actually a supporter of this, a proponent of this particular bill, but hopefully it will ease some of the restrictions so we can build more houses or multifamily houses and bring some prices down for those, especially first-time home buyers, which I've seen. I've been in the trenches with them trying to get houses, and it's just very frustrating. And so hopefully that will help. In House Bill 613, we have a really good state administration committee. I'm really proud of our committee because I think we work on both sides of the aisle to try to bring forth change. And House Bill 613 is one that the state administration committee worked on for a week. They would come in an hour early, and it basically helped bring election offices to the Indian reservations, and without it being really, really expensive. And I think that the committee really worked hard on that one. Also, House Bill 643 helps disabled voters. We passed that out of committee and it passed the floor, second reading. And basically disabled voters can vote electronically like our overseas military can. So, just hearing the struggles of people and having to print out a ballot. Well, what if they're quadriplegic and they can't print out a ballot? So I'm just hearing those stories. I'm very proud of that bill. House Joint Resolution 21 is I voted for, and it passed the floor as well, and it will pay for the state funeral for the last surviving World War II Medal of Honor recipient. And House Bill 388, that's one that Representative Staffman out of Bozeman brought forward, or Gallatin County. And it's basically so that it establishes a Montana Health Crisis Prepared Program. So we're not caught off guard like we were last year, and maybe we can prepare by getting more masks and maybe getting those masks when there's a surplus. So it's a bill so that we're more prepared. Senate Bill 51 is also one that I think that people would like, and exempts certain fiber optic and coaxial cable from property taxes for the first 5 years. We all know we need broadband throughout the state, and I think that will help. I voted against right to work. I got a lot of emails on that, and I stepped up and voted against that. And that was a tough vote, of course, within my party. And so I voted against that one. And I think I talked about Grow Your Own Teacher program last month, so I won't touch base on that one, but I think it's a wonderful program helping rural communities and also Indian reservations. One big thing out of state administration, we're going to study the pensions. What I've learned is we need to make sure our pensions are financially sound. So there's going to be a study resolution over the interim to look at our pensions for our state workers. I could go on and on, but one of the other bills I sponsored was Senate Bill, or I carried, was Senate Bill 109, Gifted and Talented, which is near and dear to my heart because I worked on that when I was a school board trustee, and it basically aligns rule with statute so that everybody's on the same page regarding gifted, talented children. And let's see, I think one of the other big ones, two other ones that I'd like to mention is a study on water sewer districts. I did realize in local governments that not only in our communities, but elsewhere, that sometimes there's struggles with water boards and local water boards. And so there's going to be a study over water sewer districts. And lastly, I voted for House Bill 624, which establishes a business task force on childcare. So we know that childcare is an issue, and I know that that was brought up in one of our community meetings, that we really have a childcare shortage. And so this will put a task force together to look at what we can do to bring childcare to our local communities. And so I think those are just a few of the many bills that I worked on over and I'll touch base on education if I get a question regarding that. So
There has been a lot going on.
Thank you for giving me the time to speak about this.
Marta, could I ask a couple of quick questions on what you said? First of all, House Bill 632, just to clarify, that is about the allocation of the federal stimulus and COVID recovery funds. Is that right?
Yep, ARPA. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it sure is.
Good. And House Bill 170, the green hydrogen, could you say a bit more about that? Because I'm not familiar with that.
So it is a bill, 1.1 to $1.5 billion will be directed. It's a green hydrogen bill, and it uses renewable energy. And I think it's Mitsubishi, don't quote me, that will, and maybe the senator could speak more on that. But I think they're looking in the Butte area, and they'll be building a facility and looking, it will be 800 to 1,000 jobs in that area. So I think that I would have to look at the vote, but that was a major positive step for jobs and renewable energy sources.
And so the bill provides some incentive for that facility?
Yes,
Okay.
there quite a lot of money will be directed toward the green hydrogen. And I can look more into that House Bill 170 and get back with you, unless the senator wants to add to that.
Senator May, since it appears to be in her backyard. Senator Edie, I'm going to give the mic to you.
Okay, thank you. So Senate Bill 170 was carried by Representative Welsh. And the reason he carried it is because Beaverhead, Silver Bow, and Madison County all kind of come together, and this would be a great area for the plant to build, and they would be building out towards the industrial district. That's, if anybody knows, kind of on the way to Dillon, between Butte and Dillon. And yeah, there would be about 800 jobs that they would have after the plant is built. And there'd be probably, they say, between 2,000 and 2,500 jobs building the plant. So this is just one of the many steps that we need to complete by passing this bill in order for the company to give a serious consideration to come to Montana and have their plant. I do know that there will be, they will have a corridor of their energy going down to Salt Lake area, and there's already some areas in Salt Lake that they have been looking at where they could store some of the energy that they have. So it's really a complicated thing, and it's, to learn all about it in one sitting is a little hard, but that's what I know about it, and I am very excited for it, and I think everybody in this area is too. So I guess I'll just go ahead and talk about, I agree with Marta. It's hard to believe that it's already been a month since we last visited with one another. I've been attending sessions through both Zoom and in person. I've been going to Helena 3 days a week now, and then I come home. I think one of the things that the people are probably interested to know about is the progress of the Montana Highway Department moving to Boulder. And the last time that I spoke with Chief Deputy Attorney General Chris Hansen, I was really happy to hear that she says the department is continuing to move forward with its plan to move to the campus. I know that tomorrow morning there will be a bill, HB 686. This bill is carried by Representative Regier, and this will provide the transfer of funding for money for the Highway Department to move and also transfer the property that is now in the hands of DPHHS to the Department of Justice, so that the Montana Patrol can use the buildings. And I know that on the building there is on the bill there is a closing date of July 1st, 2021. So everything is moving fast and it's still going. And I am also under the impression that there was people, a group of people who went down to Boulder and toured the campuses, and from what I understand, they liked what they saw. I've been working on a couple bills. I had Senate Bill 372, which I think I spoke about last time when we met, and that was the bill to allow driver's license applicants to have information put on their driver's license for health information. I had the last hearing about a week and a half ago, and I found out Friday evening that the bill passed out of the House committee. And so it should be on the floor sometime this week. And if everything goes all right, it will pass. I had a bill hearing last Friday, which for SJ 22, which is requesting an interim study for the viability and sustainability of our emergency medical services in Montana. And this is a great bill because it gives the interim committee an opportunity to study EMS services throughout Montana, and they're able to give a real thorough look at some of the things that are going on and maybe some of the changes that we need. And they'll have about 18 months to look at this study. And so I'm seeing some of the bills that come out of that. I have one other bill that I have a hearing on Wednesday, and that will be for to create an emergency care council. So right now, the bills are moving through, and I'm excited that some of the bills are still alive, because usually by this time, a lot of them aren't. Since transmittal break, we've been really busy in all of our committees. I serve on Fish and Game, and in that particular committee, we've heard a lot of bills about wolf trappings and extending the trapping seasons. And also this past week, we heard some bills about aquatic invasive species. And in education, we heard a great bill about allowing the Youth Academy students to receive diplomas. This is great because a lot of times when our students go down to the Youth Academy in Dillon, they're not able to get their diploma because they're missing so many credits. So if they work on their credits, then the superintendent of public instruction here in Montana has come up with a plan to give them a diploma that comes out of her office, but they have to meet a set of requirements. There also was a great bill about House Bill 233 that allows students who are on IEPs and have not met graduation requirements to remain in school for a couple of years until they meet their graduation requirements. And I think that's just a wonderful thing. We've heard a lot of bills on tax exemptions and housing credits. And this week, we'll be hearing another bill about simplifying our income taxes. We've had a couple of bills like that over the years. And so I'm anxious to see what this bill is about. House Bill 2 hasn't made it over to the Senate yet, so I can't really speak about that other than to say that I know that right after the Easter break, the plan is to have House Bill 2 on the floor before the Senate. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully before Easter break, we'll have our notebooks on it and we can start looking at it. As Representative Bertoglio mentioned, we have two bills, House Bill 630 and 632, which deal with the federal COVID relief money that has been giving our state. House Bill 30 is more or less for the school districts and how they will distribute how that money will be distributed throughout Montana. And then the 632 is kind of the, I think it was referred to as the beast. And that's talks about all the departments, or not departments, but appropriation for all of the money and where it's going to go, as far as knowing what community gets what. That hasn't been decided yet, but I do think that will be decided by the end of this week. I think some people might be a little curious about our legislation on the marijuana and how those bills are playing out right now. I know we currently have 3 bills that are being considered. I've heard just through leadership when we sit and visit and talk that the bills may be split into two parts, and one part might go to business and labor and the other part might go to tax. And I'm kind of excited to see it go to tax because last session when we set the rules and the regulations for medical marijuana, a lot of those rules and regulations came out of tax. And so I'd like to see it come here because we've already studied the subject a little more thorough than other committees. So I'm hoping it does come to us. I think right now.
Thanks. Thank you so much. If I can ask a couple of questions, so House Bill 686, you mentioned, which would transfer part of the MDC property to Department of Justice from Health and Human Services. What are the prospects for that? I mean, is that more or less a done deal, or could there still be challenges?
I think it's pretty much a done deal. I mean, everything that I've heard has been positive. I had a really good conversation with Representative Lou Jones, who is the appropriation chair, and we were talking about it, and he felt that it was just part of the process that we have to go along to make everything happen. So I feel really good, and every time I talk to Chris, and I think I've mentioned before that we've served together, and I've always had a respect for her and felt that what she says is, you know, she'll go after and make it happen. And so I do feel that it's going to happen.
Good.
I would agree. I would have to say the people that I've talked to, including Representative Regier, who's working on the companion bill, it's a matter of, I think it's very positive, and I've actually heard nothing negative other than one person that might be retiring from MHP because they don't want to do the drive, but that's the only negative thing. And I thought, well, you know, when you have kids that make it over the hill every day to go to school. So I think it's going to be a wonderful thing. And I've only heard positive things. So
that is good news for Boulder. And Senator, the House Bill 632 on the COVID funds, tell me, why is that called the beast? Does that have to do with the allocation process? I mean, does everybody want a piece of this?
I think you're right. I think everybody wants a piece of it. Before appropriations and finance and claims got together to visit about the bill, they had talked about, you know, asking everybody, kind of put your wish list together. What is it you're asking us for? And so we did, and some of it was infrastructure projects, some of it was, you know, need for daycare money throughout the state, and so, you know, they've just they've had to do a lot of preparation for this bill and had to figure out where they're going to put the money, and they haven't had a whole lot of time, and that's one reason we didn't see House Bill 2 yet over in the Senate, is because they took about a week and a half to study this bill and make some decisions on how they were going to put the money in the state of Montana. And so it has been a beast. It has been a nightmare for them, I think. A good one though.
And I also think it's called the beast because it is 6.2, almost $3 billion. And so I think just in aligning House Bill 2 and figuring out where we can spend the money, and, you know, there are parameters. I would say there's 100 million. I talked to the bill sponsor and he said there's 100 million that is will be going toward childcare related issues, and that they've got a commitment to stand up childcare facilities. But what they want to make sure is that they have long-term benefits without the long-term liabilities, because they don't want to start something that they're always going to have to fund. So local communities are going to have to take on the operational costs eventually, but they want to get that infrastructure in place. And so I think the amount of money also is why it's also called the beast.
And on that childcare money, an important thing, I was speaking with Senator Ellis, and she was telling me of that $111 million, half of it is going to go to new existing or new childcare, and then the other half will go to existing childcare. So, so like in our Jefferson County, I know that there's a childcare problem. This might be a good way to help solve the problem. But again, we don't know how much money is going to come to Jefferson County yet.
And
All right.
I also, because I know water sewer is part of the beast. And I think it's important for those communities, small and large, that want to get their projects in, since this is going to be an infrastructure bill, to make sure, and I think it's through the Department of Commerce, but to make sure they get their forms in, because they are taking them now. And so they of course will prioritize. So I think it's important. And in reading one of the bills, I think it is Department of Commerce. So grants and such. So I want to make sure that people know that, because I know there are some issues in our communities.
So there is a lot riding on the beast. We will look forward to watching how that emerges over the next week or so. Thank you. So I'm going to turn now to some questions from our attendees. Don Lipinski at first asked a question about House Bill 325, which is currently in the Senate Judiciary Committee. This bill would do away with at-large elections for Supreme Court justices and provide for elections in newly created separate districts. Don says, in my opinion, this bill is severely flawed, in part because it erodes voting rights, he says, by restricting individuals to vote for only one seat on the court. He says that the bill would effectively censure voters by denying us our right to vote for all Supreme Court justices, and could reduce the number of qualified justices to choose from. So he wonders, why change the system? What's the motivation here? Who wants to?
I can start with that. I think there have been a number of bills actually that have come to the floor that have to do with the judges and the makeup of the judges. I would have to say, having not been a sponsor of 325, nor being in that particular committee, I can't necessarily provide a lot of background or detail. I hope that we increase voter participation no matter what bill comes forward. I can only hope for that. And I think maybe House Bill 325 speaks to the fairness and balance that Montanans want. As far as the bills that stand out in my mind are the bills that want to bring partisanship to the judges, and I've voted those down. I think there's enough party politics in our state, and I think the court needs to be neutral. And so I think, in my opinion, we don't need to be putting an R or a D next to a judge's name. So that is my opinion as far as that goes. And that's all.
Thank you. Edie?
Can you hear me? I'm not sure if I'm still on. Yes, I am. Okay. Thank you. So, I wasn't either a carrier of the bill, and I didn't hear the testimony. But I do believe that our judges aren't elected to be advocates for districts and represent their values or their causes. They're here to faithfully adhere to our Constitution and the laws of the state. And I think by right now, every Montana voter gets to have a say on each and every one of our Supreme Court justices. And that this law that is being proposed would leave us with only one vote for our justice. And I don't think that would be a fair thing for the citizens of Montana. I think the way that we have it set up right now is the way to continue doing it.
Thank you. Two attendees, Janice Fritsch and Joy Lewis, both asked about House Bill 258. And this is the Montana Federal Firearm, Magazine, and Ammunition Ban Enforcement Act, This would basically, as I understand it, prohibit the enforcement of any federal ban on the regulation of firearms, magazines, ammunition components, accessories, et cetera, et cetera. This has been passed by the House and is, I think, in second reading in the Senate. Both Janice and Joy oppose this and are wondering where you stand.
I think Montanans are a very strong pro-Second Amendment people. And I think those bills in particular speak to that fact and not wanting the federal government to tell us, you know, what we believe on our Second Amendment rights. And I vote with my caucus on that one because, and I do think people voted me in, and I did when I was doing some of my mail outs, I did say that I was going to advocate for pro-Second Amendment, and I think my constituents also expect me to, so.
And Senator?
I'm a strong supporter of our Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear our arms. And Montana is a rural and outdoor driven state, and guns are a part of our history and our lifestyle. And I will always vote, try to protect our way of life. But House Bill 258 seeks to prevent Montana from enforcing any federal firearm laws. And so I think that this bill is unworkable, and I've also heard it is unconstitutional, and we can't just pick and choose which federal laws we want to follow or not. So we have to, the US Constitution doesn't allow for us not to follow the federal laws. And that's one thing I was taught early on as a legislator, is that federal laws always trump state laws.
Thank you both. A couple of folks asked about the, I believe it's Senate Bill 388. And again, we're throwing around bill numbers. This is regarding tax increment financing. So Tom Harrington asked about this, and an attendee, anonymous attendee tonight, asked about the same bill. So tax increment financing, for those not familiar with it, allows the creation of specific areas of targeted development or urban renewal, where the base tax level is set, and then tax increment on improvements within the district go into a special fund to be used within that district. As I understand it, Senate Bill 388 would limit the amount of tax increment financing or TIF districts that can be created within a county or municipality. So any thoughts is the question.
I have to be honest with you, I haven't heard Senate Bill 388. And so I know that over the years in our sessions, we've had many bills come forward for different things with tax increments. You know, and I support them. They've been a good thing for our communities in helping develop areas and bring businesses to our communities. But this particular bill, I'm not up on, so I can't answer that.
I would agree. I think we're doing some, when I've seen the bills come across, I think we are doing tax incentives, quite frankly, like the broadband one that I had mentioned. But I can't necessarily speak about that bill. I think really with COVID, we're really trying to open up Montana and help our small businesses. But to speak the specifics on that bill, I cannot do that either.
Okay, thanks. We have a question from Melissa Kwasny, and this is touches on something that surfaced in our last conversation, and since has been the subject of letters in the Monitor and quite a bit of press statewide. This is about Senate Bill 215, the Montana Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which, and I'm going to summarize here and try to do it justice, but this act would allow individuals and entities to claim exemption from laws and policies if those rules substantially burden the expression of their religious beliefs. This has now been passed by the Senate and is in the House. Some people argue that this is in fact protecting, safeguarding religious freedom. Others, including Melissa, worry that it will lead to discrimination and divisiveness. So perhaps you can explain where this bill stands and what your take is on it.
I have not seen the bill yet. It hasn't hit the House floor yet. But I will say unjust discrimination in all forms and on whatever basis, whether it be religion, race, or sexual orientation, gender identity, it is evil, it's morally repugnant, and it's destructive to our society. And I condemn all efforts to do that. I think Senate Bill 215 speaks to articulate the religious freedom guaranteed with that it must be afforded with the highest level of legal protection by requiring the strict scrutiny standard to be applied when someone is exercising their religious belief. I really hope that if it passes, it is not a tool for discrimination. And I think I consider myself a compassionate person, and I would hope that this would not be something. It's more about someone's religious belief, not discrimination.
And I did vote against it when it came on the floor. We had I think it was the reason the question probably came up because it was in the Boulder Monitor. I don't support the bill. I do think that some people may choose to use it and discriminate other people with, and that's what worries me about the bill. Like you, I think that discrimination is very wrong, and I want to protect people, anybody, from being discriminated against.
Thank you both. I'm going to turn to a question now from Briar Herrick. And this actually was echoed, another question from Janice Fritsch. So Briar asks about several pieces of legislation, including House Bill 129, which is about the expansion of the Education Savings Program, and 279, which would expand the tax credit for donations to private schools and innovative programs at public schools, and a couple other bills. Briar writes, all threaten to divert public funding to private schools. I'm concerned about the impact these bills will have on our public schools. How are you voting on these, and how do you justify your votes?
Okay. I voted against House Bill 129, and House Bill 279 and 329 and 633 haven't made it over to the Senate Education Committee yet. So they've not even been on introduced yet. So, but I don't support any bills that privatize public schools. I know that Jefferson County has a wonderful public school system, and like other schools across the state of Montana, they struggle for funding every year. And all of these bills that you just mentioned, 129, 279, 329, and 633, would lead to cutting funding for our public schools. And when we cut funding for our schools have to find that funding somewhere else. And so it could cause an increase in our property taxes. I'd like to see the state of Montana continue to invest in our public schools, and so we can meet the needs of our students for like our mental health care, after school programs, preschool and summer programs, especially now. Students that have had such a hard time in this past year during the pandemic, that there are programs that need to be expanded. And so I just don't think we have money to fund charter schools or private schools or any bills or any of the schools that these bills would affect. So I just think we need to keep our public money public for our schools.
Well, I have seen all four of those. One is still sitting in committee. So I'd like to say first and foremost, think I'm an advocate for public school, and if you look at House Bill 246, which I've carried, and Senate Bill 109, which is the gifted talented, and House Bill 68, which was signed by the governor. That's the one for the military children. And then House Bill 88 was some changes, more technical changes to the teacher retirement system, but part of it also protected the teacher retirement system and pensions. I believe we've got great public schools, and the staff in our district, the ones that I've met are wonderful and do great things for our kids. As far as House Bill 129, I voted against it. I didn't like that you couldn't talk to your financial. So for example, when stationed all over, I have a financial advisor, and I couldn't necessarily use him for my 529 plans, and my 529 plans weren't grandfathered in. I think there was an amendment that says out of state, something changed in the Senate, but I actually voted against House Bill 129. As far as House Bill 279, I voted against that in committee. I think I might have been the only Republican that voted against it. I tried to bring an amendment to the sponsor to basically it would tailor the funds that could also go, because this bill isn't just about private schools or the tax credit for private schools. There in that bill, you can bring money to the public schools. It's for their innovative education programs, but it goes to a district, which means that say somebody wanted to get tax credits and they wanted that money to go to an innovative program at Jefferson High School. Well, or in a district, say it has to be split amongst the district. It can't go specifically to a school. And I wanted to address that. I wanted it to be more flexible, but he was not willing to put that amendment on the bill. And when it came to the floor, we had a long conversation, and that ended up being a caucus vote. He really feels that it's about parental choice, and it will help low income, I would say mostly low income to middle income kids that are struggling in public schools. And it will be a scholarship program for them to go to private schools. As far as 329 goes, that was sponsored by a representative that actually has a special needs child, and also brings some flexibilities there for some programs if they wanted to be able to use some of those credits, let's say for in order to help their kids. So I know that ended up being a Senate and House priority bill. As far as 633, that's the big charter school bill. We heard it in education maybe a week and a half ago, and it's a huge bill, and it has a lot of changes in it. And I asked the question, I know that we've got the Bridger Academy, which is over in Bozeman. And I know we have a public school charter already. We already have that in place. And I asked the question, the person that brought it forth, I said, well, have we tried to use the current model? And I don't know if we've necessarily tried to use the current model. There's just so many changes in that bill. I don't know how I feel about that one. So we haven't had EA on that one just yet. So I think I would like to see my bill, which is House Bill 246, which is a public, I think it provides flexibilities, and I'd like to see that enacted. It passed the House 99-1. It passed the Senate 50-0. It's on its way to the governor's desk, and it really provides the flexibilities for parents, for trustees, so that we can meet all students' needs. And so I quite frankly want to see how my House Bill 246 is enacted and how that helps our kids. So that's where I stand on all of those bills.
Good, thank you. We have a question from Deb Hanneman. who asks for your take on House Bill 367. And I was not familiar with this, but this is regarding the harvest heritage, and I'll just read the summary quickly. It is an amendment to protect the rights of Montana citizens to hunt, fish, trap, and harvest wild fish and wildlife. Yeah. Edie, you may know more about this?
Don't.
No, okay. Okay. And Marta, you're shaking your head.
I think we saw that one this week, and I think, I mean, off the top of my head, we're a big sportsman heritage type state. And I think what I've learned, there are some huge advocates on the House floor for bringing back the heritage, making sure we stand with our heritage and what Montana is all about. Just off the top of my head, sometimes, and now I totally get it when you walk up to a representative or a senator and you say, what do you think about House Bill such and such? And they look at you like, I don't know numbers. You're just gonna have to tell me the title. So that off the top of my head, that's all I can speak to that one.
Okay, so we will all look into that one, Deb.
That was House Bill 367, is that right?
367, yeah. Yeah. Third reading apparently is tomorrow.
Yeah, that must have come across maybe Friday.
Yeah. Okay, a question from Rebecca Johnson regarding House Bill 176. Again, this is one we talked about last time. The bill would eliminate same-day voter registration on election day. Rebecca asks if the Secretary of State's office has examined the problems of efficiency and security in county elections, and are there more effective options than simply turning voters away for registration on election day? Any thoughts on that?
And I listened to the Secretary of State actually on that bill, and it seemed like quite a while ago, maybe in January, perhaps. And I can't speak to her, what research she's done, but I know that is one of her priority bills. And I think she looks at it as an election integrity, because currently election officials may have to register new voters, maybe do some replacement ballots, accept new ballots, count ballots all on the same day. So we tried to align it so it's Monday at noon in our committee, Monday at noon, because it aligned with the absentee ballots. And we have a great resource on our committee, a representative that was in, she was a clerk and recorder. So she just has a lot of knowledge when it comes to elections and can speak to the bills. I think that the Secretary of State just wants a more robust, in the way she looks at it, it's more robust, and that to truly make sure that every vote counts and that there aren't mistakes. So when you go in and register, you can vote that same day, even if it's the Thursday before. And so I personally have, because I was in the military, I do absentee voting, so ballot voting. So that's all I know from back when she got up. I mean, that's one of her election integrity bills. But as far as research, I'm not sure what she's done.
I'm not sure if there's any research been done yet. That might be something she does after we leave town, because she's probably knee deep in what's going on right now. But we've had same day voter registration since I think it was 2005. And we've never had any problems with it. I think it should stay as is. So it'd be interesting to find out what the Secretary of State comes up with as far as her reasoning and her plans and what she's going to do. But like you, I am an absentee voter. I think there's a lot of us out there, but I support same-day registration.
Thank you. So we've got a few minutes left, just 5 minutes. I want to ask, what should we look forward to in the final weeks of the legislature? Edie, you said that after the Easter break, you expect the budget bill to land with the Senate. That will be, you know,
Right.
one of the big the big things. I imagine House Bill 632 will. You said that that will have to be resolved before the budget happens. What else is going to play out over the next few weeks?
I know that 630 also the bill that talks about the school funding and how the money is allocated throughout the state of Montana. That's another bill that has to be taken care of. I think we'll have to, between both the House and the Senate, any of the tax bills that have been passed, and if any of the bills have the same language or maybe even something close to it, they'll have to turn around and have little meetings on the tax bill so that they can just make one bill instead of a whole bunch of bills. And I think that needs to be decided as far as our budget. What kind of revenue will we be bringing in the future? And that's very, very important. So we'll be seeing a lot of tax bills. Also, the marijuana initiative is a bill, and I think that's going to be starting in the House this week. But like I said, there's 3 bills out there, and I don't know which one is going to be moving, or if they're going to move them all and then try and combine them into one. I think that's a major question for a lot of people in the state of Montana, is what's going to happen with that. And I've not heard anything yet. So I think those are a couple of things that'll be moving along.
Money, money, money. That's what I think. When I think of April, I think of the big bills, 630, 632, House Bill 2, how they all interplay with each other, how we can maximize all of the funds coming in and make sure we prioritize, especially the beast bill 632, making sure we have infrastructure, broadband, water, sewer. I think those are going to be really important for our state. And I think we might see 632 this week and maybe 1 or 2 marijuana bills. I'm not quite sure, but I think we're going to see 632 this week.
This is going to be an intense few weeks. I'm not sure I shared the right thing. Okay, that's what I meant to share. Again, folks, if you want to reach your legislators, here is their contact information for both Senator McClafferty and Representative Bertoglio. The links to the state legislature site, which is excellent, and a chance to track your bills and follow the budget proceedings and watch live if you care to. We will be having a final forum, assuming that Edie and Marta are still standing a few weeks from now. The timing of that will depend on when exactly the legislature closes, but I expect that it will be, you know, give or take the last Sunday in April. But we will let you know. We will send up a flare. In the meantime, thank you so much, Senator, Representative, for joining in this, for digging into the weeds of this legislation and being so responsive to the questions of your constituents. Thank you as well to the Boulder Transition Advisory Committee, especially to Drew Dawson, for working with us on this and really making this happen. And thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. It's been a great hour, really enjoyed it, and look forward to the next. Thanks.
Thank you, and happy Easter.
Take care. Bye-bye.